Picture the scene. West Hollywood, the hottest, the most exclusive nightclub in LA. And you have people like Travis Scott in the room. You have the Kardashians in the room. You have Tom Holland. You have, name them. And a strict no photos policy, it's been implemented because of the ultimate luxury of those environment and the things that money can't buy. And that is the freedom to be completely unapologetically yourself. And somewhere in that room, going to bed before 2 a.m. so he can get an early start on contract law the next morning is a man who built all of it. Sober always. And that is our guest for today, Connor Treacy, co-founder of OffSunset at the age of 28, a venue that generated over $4 million in its first year and became one of the most sought after reservations in LA. And I mean, he had a Grammy credit before that. He had a viral event that made national headlines before that. And guess what? This guy is multi-talented. A U.S. national judo title before that. And by age 31, he steps away from all that. Not because he failed, not because something was wrong with the business, but because he was finished with that phase of business. And he used the same principles to build the most exclusive rooms in Hollywood that he redesigned, and now moving into a space of political engagement and being at the forefront of political discourse. This is the clarity mandate. And if you don't know whom I'm talking about, he is a man who needs no introduction in LA. And we are talking about Connor Treacy, and you're welcome to the Clarity Mandate.
What's up? Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I want to start really with something that most people might not think to ask. You have five genuinely distinct careers before the age of 32.
Yeah.
Judo champion, event promoter, music executive, nightclub founder, civic leader. Most people at looking at that list will see a range. And the question is, what do you see when you look at it? And what is the thought line for you? And how did you manage to keep changing from one area to another and doing it with such huge success?
Yeah, I think, well, for one, it was definitely not planned that way. I originally started doing the events and then I just kept building on it. But I don't think I'm like an expert necessarily in any of them. I think that for one, I stopped trying to make sense of it. And then two, I just kind of go where the wind blows, So sometimes there's opportunities in music, and sometimes there's opportunities in the hospitality, and sometimes there's opportunities in the politics. So I feel like I just kind of go where the wind blows, and then I try to, I guess, just add value and put together plays and connections, based on where I think it'll help, like with whatever I'm in. So definitely didn't plan on it, and I feel like everything I do is kind of the same. I'm more kind of like a behind the scenes operator. So I don't know if it matters if I'm in a recording studio or in a nightclub or putting together like a political fundraiser. It's kind of all similar.
Wow, that's interesting. And when we look back at your growth path, at age 19, you were out there throwing a party that became a national news event. By age 24, you are in a room with the big movers, Universal Music Group. And by age 28, you are building this successful nightclub in LA. For me, these are no accidents. So for our guests, for our audience, what are some of the skills, the skill set that you can say these are some transferable capabilities that you were developing all through this journey that you might not otherwise have realized in a different environment?
Yeah, even, like, in the beginning, like, when I did, like, the Project X party that was on the news, like, I definitely was not the most popular person that I did the party with or was the most known or whatever, but, I was able to get the house for it and kinda I figured out who the most popular people were in town around my age doing it, and I got them all to do the event with me because I had the house, and then we built the Facebook event page, and then it just took off, and so I feel like whenever I enter a venture, I kinda, like, figure out what would be the best ingredients to put together to make this the best thing possible, and so I guess lead with that, and sometimes I lead with that and not necessarily even think would make the most money. I try to lead first with what I think would make the best product, if that makes sense.
Wow, that's impressive. And I love your strategy of collaboration. Who are the most impactful people in town that I can work with to make these work and make this be the best? Because I think some of our listeners are struggling with ideas, great thoughts, but they are not able to put together the right teams that can actually help them get the results. And you just heard from someone who has done it from a very young age of 19, and he keeps doing and winning in different fields. And let's talk about offs for a moment. It became one of the most really sought after environments in LA, celebrities, private parties, a no photo policy, a room that was really built for luxury of letting go. And you were sober through all of it, despite the hype and everything, going to bed before 2 a.m. so you could be at your decks doing contracts and negotiations. What does it feel like to be the most clear headed person in the room that is built for people to just let it go and for people to just have fun and be themselves? So what did this really do for you, having that kind of a focus and that kind of, I call it life principle?
Yeah, I think, it's just like being like a pro athlete or something, right? I feel like you kinda if you wanna be on your A game, it's kinda hard to be consistent over time if you're partying hard like that, so I think that I definitely don't always feel like I have it all together in a sense that everything's gonna work out, but, I think that because maybe I don't drink or whatever, I'm able to just stay more consistent than the competition over time. But I've been sober since I was 19, so I don't even know the difference at this point, and I don't think people know me any different. It wasn't really that much of a challenge, but yeah, I think the thing that maybe helps with the most is just consistency.
Wow, that's a powerful keyword, consistency. And that's what has kept our guest all through his business from a young age of 19 as an entrepreneur and now doing the big things that he's doing in his 30s. And let's zoom more talking about Sunset's core design principle, which was really privacy as luxury in a culture that is obsessed with visibility, social media, performance, but you managed to build an environment where luxury was not being seen. That is really counterintuitive to what many people want. They want first page, and it actually worked for you. What were you observing about the limelight and the difference in what you actually package that was not being seen in the market?
Yeah, I think that, like, a lot of the real celebrities and, like, a lot of the real kind of people that are in the entertainment scene crowd in LA, they don't necessarily want all their business all over the internet, so I feel like the goal with Sunset was to make it a place where no one really even knew about it in the beginning besides insiders, and their paparazzi didn't even know about it because people weren't even told or knew that it was going on, and it just kind of we grew it very, like, a grassroots and just through text message only. We didn't even have it on Google Maps for a while. It was just very low key, and I think that kind of a vibe, made people feel like a safe space to just go out and have a few drinks with some friends no matter who they are type vibe.
Wow, that's powerful, and that really made a difference in the kind of people that you were attracting to the venue. And you are busy building all these, and you are pursuing degrees. You're pursuing a law degree at the university at the same time. Most founders sometimes will treat formal education as something that it's not required when you're really focused on getting what you need to do. But you treat it as something very important, and you just said you finished an MBA. So
Yeah,
you are a
done.
guy who is doing the business, doing the formal training, and and still maybe what was a specific gap for you that you really wanted to close with all these academic qualifications?
Yeah, I originally dropped out of college when I was 21, I think, when the nightlife stuff really started to take off. And so I became like a big promoter that would bring out a lot of big celebrities and stuff, and then got hired at Universal Music Group when I was 24. But it was, I guess, when I got into more of the corporate scene, like at Universal Music Group, that people, the first thing they would ask is like, "Oh, where'd you go to school?" or this or that, or "What degrees do you have?" And so I started to think, I don't know, I feel like I'm maybe gonna hit a ceiling where like, I'm just known as the person that knows all these like people or whatever, and that's kind of like my value. And so I had the idea, I guess, like right around when COVID hit, like around January of 2020, where I was like, I feel like if I really want to like go as high as possible without a ceiling, I am gonna have to go back and do everything, because otherwise people are just gonna like pigeonhole me into being the nightlife entertainment person that has relationships. So that was a big reason why I went back. So yeah, I finished my MBA at USC. So 6 years later, got finished undergrad, did the business law degree, and then just did my MBA. So it was a journey. It was a journey. PhD like you though. I don't know.
Story is similar to yours, but it's not really about me today because I remember at a point in my career with my master's degree, and it also felt like moving higher in my own field required a higher degree. And like you, I also made the decision to go sit in for that PhD so that I could get into the rooms and occupy the seats that I wanted to, but it's about you today. You stepped back from managing off sunset while it was still at its peak. You retained your stake, but you walked away from the day to day operations, and that most founder would have doubled down looking at the performance, the numbers, and everything. What was the internal signal to you that it was time to step back and focus on other things? And how do you distinguish that signal from maybe fear or from the temptations of the next shining big thing that is in town? Because some people are following the next star, the next not star. What was it for you?
A few things. One, I worked at this really like hot, big club when I was younger called One Oak. And it was like a globally known brand. And that's kind of where I guess got started in a sense. But I watched it go from being kind of like the hottest thing that I've ever seen to fizzling out. It took a while. I mean, it opened in like 2014, and then it closed like right at the end of 2019. So I always knew with Off Sunset that um it eventually would probably fizzle out. It's because those super hot clubs don't always last. They usually last like 3 years or something, and then the new shiny toy opens in town. So it was like a mix of that, and then I was about to start my MBA that summer when I left. And then also I had already been through COVID where 2019 I was peaking probably where I was working at Interscope or Universal and then working at One Oak and I was doing all these things and then I left. And then so I'd already kind of been through a feeling of like losing it all and then rebounding with Off Sunset. So yeah, I just felt it was more of a stepping stone and that I needed to finish the MBA so that now when I re-enter the market, I can do music stuff and hospitality stuff and the political stuff all at the same time as a broad operator type role. So I guess it's like similar in a situation where I didn't try to just sprint out the gate. I wanted to line everything up first and then go so that I could go farther rather than sprint and then get hit with a ceiling, if that makes sense.
Wow, wow. That was quite an amazing strategy, and I hope someone out there it's really learning from this to know exactly when to get ready for the next step while the other thing that you're busy with is still at its peak. So by age 31, you reinvented you've by that age you've already reinvented yourself like 5 times. Some leaders will fragment under that kind of serial transition. They would lose kind of their coherence. They might even lose credibility because it's like the shifts. They might even lose their sense of self. But you have managed to be consistent in terms of your reputation, your identity across all of these domains. And the question to you is, what has been your architecture for reinventing yourself? What has helped you to stay fixed when everything is changing, when you're moving from one area of focus to the next?
Well, for one, it's definitely not easy and you have to be comfortable with a lot of people wondering what's this guy's deal or what's his end goal or why is he because it's non-linear, right? So sometimes I'm up and sometimes I'm down, but I always have had a plan in my head. And so that's part of it. And then I think being sober is a huge part of it because in order to move across all of these domains and then do it credibly, you have to be like very on point. Because if you miss at all, then people are like, oh, yeah, see, there's a bit of that. And then also, like, I really like all I do is work, right? So there's this huge sacrifice to it. So I don't have a normal life somewhat, but I think that you give up a lot of the social life stuff going about this way. So it's a very particular type of life if you want it, you know? It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Wow, that's powerful. And I mean, you had he says, you have to build a very particular type of life. And you can't be building the kind of businesses and building the intellectual capacity behind the businesses because you're doing all of this not sequentially, you're doing all of this simultaneously. You're building your intellectual capacity, you're upgrading, and you're moving from your law degree, going to an MBA, and now you're building the Connor Treacy LLC as an institutional platform. Like you said, you want to bring everything together. And you have described this organization as prioritizing discretion, durability, institutional alignment over scale or visibility. That language is usually for someone maybe at the beginning of their careers. Most founders want to scale with huge visibility. So, where did that philosophy? I know you've explained about a nightclub and the reason for privacy, but looking at the institution you are building, what's the philosophy behind it?
The philosophy is I'm not an expert, like, necessarily in any of the fields, but I feel like I am or I want to become the ultimate one-stop shop, the ultimate operator where if you need political events, you need celebrities, you need music producers, you need this, I can do all of it, and that's the idea of the platform Connor Treacy LLC and what I offer as a service because I can credibly walk into a USC MBA class and then go to a recording studio right after, and then go to like a political fundraiser and not be out of place. So I feel like my skill set is I'm not the best music manager of all time or the best hospitality, but I can float in between all of those worlds and help whoever achieve their goals. So I could help a musical artist get to where they want to go, or a record label, or a hospitality company, or a brand that's looking to raise money, or a political group that's looking to like I can my skill set is being the ultimate helper operator for all of these people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, this is the go-to guy. You have any of the things he just listed there, whether it's hospitality, whether it's music production, whether it's political campaigns, branding, and all that. You want to speak to Connor Tracy, and we will be putting the details to his company and every other resource that he would want to put out there in the public. We'll put it in the show notes. You want to talk to him. But let's talk about the California Democratic Convention. You produce an event that deliberately eliminated the stage and podium so that the elected officials and community organizers could actually interact as equals, as intimate, side by side conversations, contrary to what conventionally we have known on how the stages and these events are organized. I mean, this to me is not just a production decision, this is a philosophy of power. And you want to walk me through the decision and what it produced at that event.
Yeah, I think obviously my roots come from hospitality, and so I already knew how to find a nightclub, get it for essentially free for this organization or group, and then I know how to build a room out, and also, like, with the politics, I had a really hard time breaking into that. That took years, right? And I feel like there's a lot of people that want to get involved in politics and talk about different causes or issues or things that they wanna be involved in, and I thought, "Why not do, like, these, like, club nights almost, like, but with political organizations or groups, and then they can just, like, run into their local official or whoever at the bar and literally talk to them about whatever they wanna talk to them about." And I wanted to make it feel like that grassroots of a feeling where you could literally be in any field and just walk in there and be like, "Oh, that's crazy. Like, this is my state senator. Like, I want to talk to them about the environment, or I want to talk to them about this or that." And so that was the whole idea with it.
Wow, that worked out really well. And you have gone ahead to describe your current work as operating at the intersection of culture, of capital, and public life. That is really, to me, an unusual positioning for someone who came from the nightlife. So, how did you develop credibility to operate in civic and institutional spaces? I know you've already said it was hard to break into. And what did your nightlife background help you to know how to find some spaces for next to nothing that for me, any conventional operator or political person in that space would not have had because you have the experience that they never had.
I think in order for me to have crossed the line, to get credibly accepted by that crowd, I think the school stuff was necessary, which is kind of the idea I had in my head originally, where um, I felt like in order to get taken seriously, I had to do all the school stuff, and so, that's kind of when I got into the MBA program and I was doing all that, kind of when I was able to start breaking into the political slash like civic world. And then also, I think they saw that I was in school, but then they also were like, "Oh, that's interesting." Like, I look online and there's like photos of him with like a celebrity. Like, what's his deal? And so that's kind of like the niche that I broke into, where a lot of these groups and orgs started responding to me because they were, oh, like he can get us venues and he can help put together these events and he knows people from the entertainment world to bring. And that's how it happened. But it took years. That one was hard to break into. That was not an easy one. But that's why and how I think it happened.
Wow. Wow. That's quite impressive that you remain persistent in all that and you saw the results that you actually see now. The question to you is, if a leader in our audience, I mean, because of the nature of the kind of work that we do, we work with policy advisors, we work with leaders. If one of the leaders is actually listening right now to this episode and looking at every measure that you've just explained in terms of the success that you got and how you built everything, and they asking themselves, they want to move into a space of growing a political campaign or growing a brand. The question to you is, what is some of the concrete first move or mindset shifts that you might want to share with them? Maybe a decision, something they can do maybe in the next 7 days, whether they're still aligned to the things that they're doing right now, but they want to move in that direction, because you seem to be one of the masters of shifting and still making a success.
So you're saying like for someone that kind of like wants to break into kind of like the political world or like that, the civic type space?
Yes, they want to break. They've been busy with something else, and
Yeah.
now they want to break into that kind of a world.
Yeah.
And they're listening to you with all the shifts that you've made and the challenges you've overcome. What could be like next step to them from you?
Yeah, so what took me the longest to figure out actually is the way to enter the political stuff. First, think about what causes you're into, and then I would just go on Google or Chat GPT and then just type in certain clubs or groups that focus on that, and then I would just reach out to them on Instagram or look at their website and sign up as a member because the clubs are the easiest ways to break into it. It took me like a year or 2 to figure that part out, and so you could be into the environment and you just wanna support clean water or something, and you could look up a group online, and I think the ones in California, it's, what is it called? There's, like, one, like, the Biona wetlands, like, near me, and then, there's this other group called Sunrise Movement. They're, like, a big national one, and they have, uh club in California also. So like that's just an example of two that you could look up if you want to work on environmental stuff. So but just think of some causes that you want to maybe help with and look up the clubs for them. And people, they'll respond to you.
Wow. I hope someone out there who might have been thinking about how did he get it all together and what could be your next steps, you just had Conrad told you that you can begin to look at some of the causes. First, you define what's your objective, what's your interest. Is it water? Is it climate? Is it social issues? Whatever the issue might be that it's in your heart that you want to advocate or be a part of, you look at that online, and thank God for AI or Google, and get more information and just be part of the community that is already doing that. And from there, you can move. And let me get my guest to the next question. You have operated in rooms where most people perform for the camera, for the crowd, for the reputation, but you went out there and you built an entire career around creating conditions where people do not have to perform. The question is, what is the most important thing that a leader can do to build that kind of quality, the kind of quality you use to build the systems, the business that you have built, so that the people around them are present and thinking rather than positioning themselves, because we live in a world right now where people, instead of thinking about the big picture, the solution, people always want to be seen and to be heard. People want the cameras. I mean, social media and everything else. People are looking out for that lamplight instead of focusing on the systems. So what would be some of the tips that you could give to a leader that wants to learn from how you did all that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for one, I didn't like set out trying to be a leader. I really was just trying to like make it, I guess, from being a college freshman or something. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm like shy or quiet or what, but I really felt like I was the star in all of it. I always leaned more into the behind the scenes of it, but I guess it's just because I was always the one like putting it together. So when you're putting it together, it's hard to also get the limelight too, because it's like, if I in the beginning was doing like college events, like I was like booking out the venue and booking the artist and hiring all these promoters and security and sound people. And so during the event, like make sure the artist performs on time, and there's all these people that can't get in that are supposed to get in, and this is going on. So I'm just running around like I don't have time to be on stage too, like talking like on a micro. So I didn't mean for it to be that way. I just think that I naturally leaned into that role, and it's kind of the same with the music business. I just started working with an artist with barely any followers and was just kind of figuring out ways in my head to like make them famous. And so I just I don't even know when you're like trying to make someone else famous. Like, I just feel like if you're the one kind of building and developing all of these things, like you kind of have to pick whether you're the artist or the person putting it together, you know?
I think you nailed it. You were focused on solving the problem that your business set out to solve. And that did not require you to be in the lamplight. And that is the secret behind your success, because you never lose the ball, you never lose focus, because that was really what was at the forefront. And after doing all of this, lamplight can come, but someone out there listening, the answer is focus on solving the problem. Focus on why you are in business. Focus on why you are organizing the event, or what is the purpose of actually the political campaign that you are involved in. Once you focus on that, everything else comes as a bonus. And the name of this podcast is called The Clarity Mandate. And I believe there are moments in everyone's lives that sometimes would force you to choose um, the option that clarity is no longer optional. It becomes the only path forward. And you have lived various moments of transition in your life between the age of 19 to the age of 32. And when you look back across all of these transitions, what is the biggest cost to you of choosing the path that you chose? And what the choosing this path that you chose made possible for you that you would never have had otherwise? The cost that you paid, and what has this given you? What has been the result of this that you believe you could not have had it if you did not pay that price?
I think to have this life, you have to be willing to have a lot of girlfriends that are like, "What the heck's going on with you? Why one year is things hot, and then family is always asking the same thing." Because it's not linear. So I could have the job at Universal one year and then I know that I have to quit that because I needed to build up my own name so then I get more leverage to then come in at a high. So in my head, it all makes sense. But to people that love me or people that are involved in my life, it's hard to understand it. So I think that's one of the biggest prices you pay. And then I guess just having to deal with the feeling of being up one year and being down one year, and people, I guess, that know you or in the scene are always like, "What does he do?" That's kind of the price, but then the payoff from it is now I don't really have a ceiling. You know, I have the NBA, I have the Grammy credit, I have the nightclub experience, I have the political stuff, so I have that, and then also I can't really get pigeonholed into anything, and if someone wants to try to block me in the music thing, then I'll just focus on hospitality or the politics. So, there was kind of like a defense mechanism.
Wow. Wow. You heard him. And Connor says he has no limit at the moment. And that is really the freedom that anyone growing a business, growing a career wants to arrive at a position where you believe that you have options. You are not boxed into one thing. And if it's taken away from you, you can't do anything else. And if you've learned anything from this episode. My guest has shared a lot of nuggets, how you manage transitions, how you grow from one level to another, how you humble yourself and acquire the skills that are required for you to succeed at the next event, at the next opportunity, at the next open door. And instead of thinking that you've got it all and box in one industry, and before you know it, you might be out of business. And I think if you're joining us on this podcast, you want to listen to everything that from the beginning up to this point. And my last question to you is there anything else on your mind you would like to share with our listeners?
Um, I guess, it has been a lot of fun. I think being an entrepreneur is not necessarily for everyone. I think you kind of fall into it. There's definitely a lot of lows with it, but a lot of highs as well, and, I guess just enjoy the ride.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really interesting, and thank you for sharing that tip. It's not for everyone because guess what? Every big business will need employees, and if that's what works for you, just stay focused because you would still lead in your role as an employee, same as leading in your role as an entrepreneur, if that's what works for you. And that is quite a huge and beautiful tip from my guest for today. None other than Connor Treacy, U.S. national champion, Grammy credit recipient, architect of the most private room in Hollywood, and now the person that is redesigning civic engagement around LA and I guess going across the nations after completing his law degree, his MBA. I mean, this guy is equipped to take his career, his business to the next levels. And like he said in his own words, he is not boxed. He feels the freedom of moving across industries. And what you have demonstrated today is really that reinvention doesn't require abandoning who you are. You moved from the nightlife to the civic engagement and political life, bringing into it the skills that you have from there, the experiences. And you've shared with our listeners that it requires knowing who you are precisely enough that would really catapult and push you to building the next room that you are actually building. And we look forward to seeing more of what you will be building after completing your MBA degree. And to everyone listening out there, the mandate is clear. You want more, you want to engage with Connor and everything else that he's been doing. We are going to put some of his details and how to access or contact him in the show notes. You want to reach out to him, you have no excuse. If you need help in any of the things that he's busy with, we will share with you the details on how you can reach him. Connor's work is really convening at the intersection of institutional projects that are linked. And this has really been impressive. And I have had a lot of fun talking with you. And I hope our audience across the globe have a lot of fun listening to you sharing all these transitions across industries that you've done and done it so well. We are truly grateful to have you. And I am Dr. Vivian Atud, and it has been a pleasure talking to Connor Treacy, and this is the Clarity Mandate. Thank you.